Hi folks, happy Thanksgiving. So just got back from a couple weeks of hunting. I went up to Montana and did some rifle hunting up there, but I was kind of working off site at the same time, so it really turned into more of a scouting mission than really a hunting mission. And of course I forgot my camera, so I can't really show you anything. I've got a few shorts or some pictures or something. I might put that together later. But then I came back to home in California and then went out because I had a special tag that I got. I got a good draw tag this year that I've been trying for a few years. And yesterday went really well. I harvested a deer and a small buck, and then also got a turkey as well while I was at it because it's fall turkey season. So it turned out to be a pretty good day before Thanksgiving. So anyway, what I'm going to go through here is I'm going to do a little bit of butchering on the deer, just show you how it is that it's done. And taking a little break from my motorcycle projects at the moment because this is hunting season, this is prime hunting season. I'm going to be going out to my Kansas property in a couple weeks and hunting there as well. So maybe I'll make a video of that. I don't really like having the camera with me when I hunt because it's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's really not straightforward. It's not easy for me to stay focused on hunting because I hunt alone. Mostly I hunt alone. Sometimes I have some friends with me, but 90% of the time I'm out there alone. Anyway, let's get to some butchering on this deer. My son Cameron came down and helped me get out of the field last night, which is great. And then we broke it down here in the garage. It was kind of a late night. Now it's in a cooler, at least in quarters and other bits and pieces. And now we just have to go through the butchering, cleaning up, and vacuum bagging process so that it can be frozen for consumption throughout the year. I'm going to run through all of that with you because personally I like butchering my own deer. I think it's the right way to go. A lot of people will immediately take their animal to some game processor somewhere. Nothing wrong with that. It's great. Game processors will do an extremely good job of making sure that your animal is well cared for. And 90%, I would say 99% of them do a pretty good job. And it's worth it if you don't feel like doing the work yourself. But I kind of like doing the work myself. It's just something I like. It's your preference. Do what you want to do. It's not about judgment about how you do something. It's more about just doing it and getting out there. And anything that helps you, enjoy your hunt more. If it's the thought of getting it and getting a bunch of deer jerky or the things like that, or deer sausage made from a processor, or any kind of game that you go with, that's really that's all that matters. If that's what you're looking forward to, or if you like getting back and grinding it all yourself and smoking your own sausages and making your own steak cuts and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of what I like to do, that's fine as well. But one thing I'd like to say is at this point is that I think a lot of time I put in during the summer is probably into my motorcycling and mountain biking hobbies. In the winter I put more time into hunting, and then fixing my RV after I nearly destroy it during these hunting and motorcycling trips. So it's a whole separate series I'm working on the RV right now. So I'll put up some videos of the various things I found and the things that I have to repair, which are pretty normal for owning an RV. It's just like owning a boat, except that when you neglect it for a while, it doesn't sink. So anyway, enough for the long intro. Let's get into the basics of, or at least how I do to butchering a deer. Real straightforward. There's some great books on it out there. I highly recommend the 2 cookbooks that were done by Meat Eater. Extremely good books. There's one for small game butchering. There's one for large game butchering. But it goes through cooking, preparation, and more importantly, hunting methods. They give you the whole background, beginning to end, including equipment, some good recipes, and all of that. If you're getting started big game hunting, or even small game hunting or any hunting, put a copy of those 2 books on your bookshelf right away. Highly recommend it. Go to themeateater.com. I think that's their website. And look up the cookbooks, and there's several, but the 2 that are most important are the guide to hunting and butchering your game. It's 2 volumes and really worth it. All right, let's get to the butchering part. So before I get started, I'd like to send a shout out to Insta360. I had a little problem with my camera, not a big deal, but I sent it back to them to check it. I sent it on Monday, whatever week it was that I sent it. They had it back to me on Friday. Fantastic customer service, real straightforward, no arguments, no issues. I'm very happy with that turnaround time. Support is excellent with those guys. So enjoying the camera quite a bit, and also getting great use out of it, and also very impressed with the customer service. And the software works great too. So thumbs up Insta360. Anyway, let's get started. So first thing I want to do is prep the surface of my table here, because this is a table I use. It's kind of scarred up, it's nasty. It's not a great surface to go ahead and cut meat on. So what I'll do is I'll put some butcher paper down over it. But first, I give it a wipe down with disinfectant. Just real quick, this is just like Clorox disinfectant wipes. I've already used a couple of them, get the gross dirt off. But also, it's good to keep the surfaces treated, because the last thing you want to do is have something get in your meat. You want a clean cooking surface, or clean preparation surface. So now I'm just going to put down some butcher paper. I really like butcher paper. I put down a couple of layers of this stuff. Butcher paper is oddly expensive, but you get a lot of it. It's also tough. That's the other nice thing about it. Whoops, dropped the roll. I will be cutting on this surface. I'm not really worried about the table below because it's already kind of scarred up. But this makes it a lot easier for cleanup later. I find it also makes a much better prep surface. I just got to tape that down. I don't want it moving around. Some basic masking tape works for that. All right, so the next things you're probably going to need are sharp knife or two. I like these knives a lot. They were given to me by my friend Rich. These are from Mike Jones. These are fantastic knives. This one has processed 3 elk, 2 white-tailed deer so far, or I should say 2 white-tailed deer, 1 California blacktail. So it's been through 6 animals, and I still haven't had to sharpen it yet, which is really pretty impressive. So that's pretty good. So I have 2 sizes of them. This one's carbon steel, that one's stainless. They both work great. I'm probably going to use the smaller one because it makes more sense for a smaller deer. Then another thing that has come in super handy is this Gerber bone saw that I bought years ago. It also has an extra blade that comes with it that allows you to cut wood in case you're out in the middle of somewhere and you need to cut off some small limbs or something. This thing goes through bone like butter. I'm very impressed with this. The handle's very sturdy. Blade's a little flimsy, but if you stay on it, man, what a nice piece of gear to have with you, especially when I'm out in the field. If I've got a long hike back, this thing makes all the difference because I can cut off the pieces of the animal that I'm not going to use, like the lower legs, break it down a lot easier, cut the ribs out, all that kind of stuff. Just makes it so much easier, and it zips right through those bones, rib bones, leg bones, whatever. Just amazing, very useful. So the other things that I like to use when I'm doing this process is I like to vacuum bag the meat cuts after I take them off the bone or process them. So I'll vacuum bag it, and then I'm going to wrap it in some butcher paper. And the reason for that is because when I put the vacuum bags in the freezer, they're kind of fragile and everything gets really hard in the freezer. If you've got some sharp points or piece of bone or something in there, it'll poke through the vacuum bag. The other pieces of meat will also, that are in there, as you're shuffling around trying to find stuff, you'll probably end up breaking the seal. It's not the worst thing, but you will get freezer burn and potentially meat loss. So I avoid that by first vacuum bagging and then putting some butcher paper on. I got this Gurion vacuum bagger off Amazon. Just read about it a little bit. I've been using it for years. I love it. It works really well. It's very reliable. The other thing you want is a Sharpie so that you can label the cut, whether you got a roast or steak or something. If you don't label it, then you don't know what you're dealing with later unless you unwrap it and find out. and you build up a lot of meat in your freezer after a little while that you won't really understand what's in there. So the idea right now is to get it processed down as far as I can take it out of the freezer later during the year, and then take the cuts and maybe grind them into hamburger or have steaks ready at any point in time. So that's kind of the process. That cookbook I was talking about from Meat Eater does have some basic butchering tips in it, which are also useful. They tell you what the main cuts are and generally what they're good for. So we'll go through the cuts. I'll try to talk about them as much as I can, but mostly I'm just going to be sitting here and processing. And once I get the first steps done, then we'll probably just do some fast forward stuff. All right. So anyway, this is the meat. It's all in game bags. They tend to keep water and dirt off of things. Get some game bags, especially if you're going to be storing the meat in a cooler or taking it out of the field or something like that. Just really helps. I like to get a lot of ice in there. I probably didn't get enough ice on these cuts that I normally like to have, but it's only in there for a few hours since I finished taking the deer apart last night. So I like to have the meat so cold that it actually makes your fingers hurt when you're working on it. But as long as it's cooled down and you get it cooled down as quickly as possible, you'll prevent spoilage. The other thing I do is I make sure that the port is open on the cooler and it's up at an angle so that all the water drains out, so you don't have meat sitting in puddles, because that's no good for it either. So anyway, let's get some cuts out and start butchering. All right, this is a rear quarter. Looks kind of messy right now, but it will be just fine. You see how that's already sticking to the paper? That's why I don't put butcher paper right up against my cuts. All right, so I'm going to start by getting one of these bags just prepped on at least one end. And there we go. Looks pretty good. So that's ready. All right. I'll trim off a little bit of this sternal fascia. This stuff doesn't really make any difference. But if you can trim a little of it off, I find that then I can see the muscle groups a little more clearly, at least get it out of the way. Before I cook the meat, when I take it out, if there's anything left on it that I don't think is going to be palatable, I'll trim that off. The other thing you have to be careful of is not trim off good meat. So I usually start like a meat scrap bag for little bits that I'm not going to use. But you can see there's kind of a division in the muscle right here. Things got a little chewed up on the outside here. I think that was during the skinning process. But anyway, you can kind of see this muscle group. So I'm just gonna very gently with the knife get down to it. And you can almost split these muscles apart. And find those groups. You can almost split them apart just by getting your fingers in between them, just like that. And you can see there's just connecting tissue supporting the divisions. And then the muscle groups have to attach somewhere. That's the other thing. Oh, hair on there. So there's several groups on the hind quarter. There's a roast too, which is really good, that make really good steaks. So you just want to be careful. Let's trim this up underneath here. Let's get that to start to separate. There, now you can see, whoops. These, like I said, these will almost peel apart.
see. There's another muscle group right there. And I'm not a butcher, so I'll just tell you straight up, I don't know what all these different groups are, but this one right here, this muscle group, I find makes really good steaks. This piece I'm taking off the surface here will become reasonable grinder, so I'm going to throw that through the meat grinder. Looks like that when we sawed this off, we made a little bit of a hash up here, but we can trim that up later. So then there's another muscle group. Kind of feel your way. Just be careful you don't get your finger between the knife and the work. So this is a Columbia blacktail. Very common in California, especially to get further to the west coast. Some people just call them mule deer. But they're not. They're, you know, I don't know, you'd have to be some sort of deer expert and maybe a geneticist, and you can be part of the group that likes to group species together, and those that like to come up with all kinds of new subspecies. Now there's a bunch of, there's probably fat right there. There's a little bit of a fat nodule. Cervid fat's not too good to eat. It's very waxy. It gets caught in your teeth. I'm not a fan. I still feel. So anyway, so this sucker's going to come off pretty soon. Now this meat's really nice and cold. My fingers are starting to tingle. I like that. That means the cooler did its job last night. So you can see there's just connecting tissue holding these different muscles together. It's really more like a sheath around the muscle. This is going to make some nice steaks. And a muscle attachment right there. And like I said, you can totally trim this stuff up after the fact. There's a tendon right there. Get a nice muscle group off. Now I'm going to cut this into steaks once I get it off of here. Now what I like is when I can get a couple of people, or one person takes the cut and turns it into subcuts. I'll get some of this fat and connecting tissue off. I'll take this little piece of meat right here. That's my scrap meat pile. There we go. I shouldn't say scrap. It's not really scrap. It's grinder. So that's what goes into sausages. That's what goes into hamburgers. We go through a lot of hamburger meat because we use it for everything. And sometimes I'll just take a roast and grind it because we don't feel like roasting it. Just as good. So look at that. So now I'm going to cut this. Actually, I'm going to use my bigger knife here. I'm going to cut this into some steaks. Make them about 1 inch thick. check that out. So much I can do with these, but generally around that thickness, I can sous vide them and then sear them, so I can have them at any bit of done that I want. And a sous vide for game, like, I don't know why I didn't get one of those things sooner. Anyway, we're gonna make 4 little micro steaks and 3 little micro steaks, and then we're good to go. So we're just a little bit. There's also some backstrap in there, which is tenderloins, the whole thing. Now the key to this thing is not to make your bag too small. Now if you have wrinkles in the bag, which there are a couple on this, that may also give you trouble. But if you get a good tight seal, there, see how that's pulling down really fast now? That's what you want to hear. Now, the way this thing works is it pulls the vacuum down to a point before it activates the seal. So that way it knows there's good vacuum in there. Done. All right, so we got some steaks. Let's set up the next bag. The one thing I want to talk about is gaminess. I don't know what that means. Depending on how the meat was treated, how it was cooked, all that kind of stuff, you can make beef taste very gamey. I don't know. So if you think something, everybody says, "Oh, I could tell it's gamey," after I tell them ahead of time that it's it's venison, say, "Oh yeah, I noticed it was a little gamey," and I'm like, "Really? I don't believe you." I have never ever stealth meated anyone because I won't do that, but my suspicion is that that's already in their head and they're looking for something to be different while they're eating it. If it's prepared right and you don't overcook it, because overcooking it will destroy it. It doesn't have a lot of fat in it. It's extremely lean meat. It's also 100% organic, by the way, for all you out there who are like, "Oh, I only eat organic food." Well, it doesn't get any more organic than this. Well, folks, sorry, but I think I lost sound on that entire last section, but here's your ball roast, here's your shank. So this part usually gets left in the woods. I don't know why. Look at the ossobuco recipe I put up. This is going to become steaks. Here's a roast, here's a roast. And these pieces are basically going to go into the grinder bag. All the stuff that I was showing earlier is really high quality meat. People will just throw it in the scrap because it looks a little rough. You don't need to do that. So I'll trim all this up. So let's get the ball roast the rest of the way off, then we'll separate the shank, and then we'll freeze the shank just as it is, just as a whole shank. And then this we'll cut into pieces or stew, doesn't matter, just makes really good dishes. And as I said, it gets left in the field more often than not. Some people call this a football roast. Some people call it a ball roast. I love it. I know if I have one of these in the freezer, life's going to be good. I think I have one from one of last year's deer. With the elks, I turn this into steak. I don't even mess around with it. Because elk meat is so good. But look at that. Hike! No, that's probably nasty. People are going to get complaints for that. But there you go. Nice. All right, I'm going to trim all this up. So I'm going to trim all this up, do some vacuum bagging, and then do the rest of the animal. So let's go to some time lapse.